name is Amanda Bennett, and I am a student from the future. I've travelled here to the beautiful town of Linz to participate in the Founding Lab, a unique offering from the Ars Electronica and the newly founded university, the Institute of Digital Sciences, Austria. I really had a fear all night that I would say Australia, so I'm good. Okay, back. Okay, so who is the cohort of the Founding Lab? Who are these students? Well, we are an incredibly diverse group of 78 students and 21 fellows. We've come from 57 countries from around the globe, and I'm joining you today from Australia. But we come from many different disciplines. We come from gastronomy to physics, history, data, AI science, arts, and even opera and dance. We have been brought together to explore how crisis can be a catalyst for change and how a university of the future may look. Where our disciplines and cultures may be our difference, collectively, what do we all have in common? Well, we are incredibly curious, passionate, divergent thinkers, and we feel like we do not belong inside the usual academic system. We want community and a sense of belonging. But before I say more about the specifics of summer school and how amazing it has been, and it has truly been amazing, so thank you to the team that brought it together, let me set the scene. It's time to get a little bit gloomy. Picture this, it's 2023. We have witnessed a pandemic. Climate change is raging and artificial intelligence is closer than ever to reaching sentience. For us, standing in front of you today, the world has never felt more precarious and accelerated. As a cohort of students studying from every corner of the globe, we reflect on whether our current traditional academic systems have the tools needed for such exhilarated problem solving. Over the past 2 weeks, we have made Post City our university campus and Linz our home. We have bathed in the sunlight by a beautiful lake, danced into the night on a questionable boat, and collectively tired the locals with the question, do you take Sodexo vouchers? We've had fantastic expert talks, workshops, projects, and fireside chats. Fellows, you will soon come to see the value of the Sodexo voucher, we hope. But our time here has been a thought-provoking yet challenging learning experience, where we have had the opportunity to rigorously and critically discuss important impending issues affecting us today. And we were challenged to ask big questions by some of the most brilliant minds in technology, science, art, and policymaking. And like Vanessa said, oh boy, there was so many questions. We have all formed networks and friendships and met potential collaborators with people from different cultures and disciplines. And we have questioned how cross-disciplinary and transdisciplinary collaboration and project-based learning may work. I'm going to share a story from me on how I, as a fine arts master's student living with a chronic illness and disability, my curiosity extends beyond my immediate field of art into healthcare and science. One of my hopes for coming to summer school was that I could find a scientist to collaborate with, and asking nearly all of the scientists in our cohort, and after searching high and low, I'm happy to say that on Saturday, I found my scientist on the Austrian hillside. Adelaide is a science master from Kazakhstan studying remotely through JKU here in Linz. I don't know if she's there, but okay. We're both incredibly passionate, we found, just a random conversation about AI and healthcare and the potential risks and benefits that it could bring. So despite being from opposite ends of the world and culture and disciplines, the Founding Lab allowed us to overcome geographical and disciplinary limitations, which would usually divide us. So we're both very motivated to work on this project over the next 6 months, and the opportunities are endless. And so we pose a question to you today, one that we have been actively working on during our time here at the Founding Lab. How do we overcome the limitations within the discipline-driven university system? And now I'm going to pass it to a fellow student, Ellie.
One, two. Excuse me for my French accent. Hello, my name is Ellie and I'm from Belgium. Me and my two other siblings were also born and raised in Belgium. By the way, if you see this, I love you. But not my parents. My parents left their country to set us up for a safer upbringing for us, for the that we had when we were not here, did not here, born yet. But safer doesn't always mean safe. And just switch the slide. During our time together, us students have discussed the limitations that we have felt in our respective academic systems and to be overcome by this new university. Those frustrations were also brought up again partly in our survey that we did amongst ourselves. In the question where what do we want to implement, what do we see as extremely important to implement in this university as policies? What stands at the top is inclusivity and diversity, which I will focus on now. Switch slide. So for context, I'm a civil engineering student doing my master's in my hometown, and my academic journey has been in a closed-minded and rigid setting. A lot of my peers and myself mutually shared feelings of being left out, not accounted for, or even pushed away. One too frequent example has been to see friends who are physically impaired having to struggle because they are in a structure where elevators and concern are non-existent. Minorities, me included, are not usually consulted to accommodate for the cultural differences. These kids and teachers were more likely to be shunned or bullied. Why queer and transphobic behaviors are still too normalized in places where we are supposed to gain wisdom? And most institutions, yes, have established a sense of flexibility, yet without neurodiversity in mind. We are all very different, but we also all function very differently. And I could go on, but for all those reasons and many more, the University of the Future should assure inclusion of students that don't fit the norm, or don't fit a norm, because there should not be a norm in the first place. And instead, the University of the Future should adapt for us, to us, according to us, all of us. Thank you. I will now hand off the mic.
Can you hear me? Good. Thanks, Ellie, for that really important perspective. I think because the foundation is unequal, and it's because the foundations of university study, because the identity of people and the validity of people in a higher education space is not set. It's not as strong as it needs to be. When we open the black box of university study, we find a really toxic element that runs through the whole structure, which is the baggage around excellence, around performance, and around proving yourself that you deserve to be in a higher education space. I think there's a chronology in university study. You're supposed to turn up, you're supposed to learn until and constantly prove yourself until you're ready to be listened to, or until you have, enough built-up credibility that you're worth something in the space. And the reality is that just never happens. All of us are vulnerable to the exploitation, essentially the exploitation of our dreams, because we want to learn, and we want to study, and we want to make progress and work as teams, and we want to take all this good stuff that happens in higher education and bring it out into an inclusive environment. But when we talk about excellence and when we talk about university, we also end up bringing in the baggage of prestige and power structures. So we're all talking about elite universities, and the way we introduce ourselves, I'm from this university, I'm from that university. There's a structure there that already builds in a hierarchy and a prestige into the way that we feel comfortable in a space. And that goes all the way down through the university, even when we're not even doing interdisciplinary work. I've had conversations with people in my own discipline where we do this weird dance, like, I care about my degree, but not too much, and you work hard, but I also work hard, but I don't work too hard, and there's this kind of horrible toxicity that gets built into that. And I was looking at the survey results this morning, and a big part of it, there's a question about grades. Should we have grades? What grades should we have? What should they be for? And there was no real answer to that, except that we want our learning to be valuable. We want to feel like we've had an experience that has been for our own exploration, for our own learning, rather than one where we jump through a hoop to tick a box to make it through the sort of, if you think of a black box of university, you put an individual in and they get shot out at the end, ready for something. But the world's not like that anymore. And that's something that has to be dealt with from the foundations of the university. And the other thing that needs to be built into the foundations of the university, I'm going to hand over now, is welfare. So we're going to hear something about that, I believe, next. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And is this on? Okay. This is actually amazing seats. I love being surrounded by all my friends because love is the thing that I constantly have been feeling all these 2 weeks. And I don't know if it's approaching the end of the festival and we are all going to separate, and I'm feeling extremely sad right now because I don't want to leave all those friends. You are my family. We all come from such diverse, different backgrounds, and it's so different, like so different. But somehow there is a magic that we all fit in so well that as if there's no difference anymore, because after all, we are all humans, and although some people may not be identified as humans, like me, I'm a non-human, but still, I love being surrounded by such a group of friends, and which makes me really afraid of going back because my home university, as an international student, there's always this kind of groups and that I cannot fit in, and I just constantly feel so alone sometimes. I know that all my friends are always there, and there's always different professors that I can go to for academic help, and I really appreciate that I have so many nice friends and professors. But on the other hand, I've also so many other friends, I see them so stressful, they're drowning in their pressure, and sometimes there's just no one to talk to, which makes me really wonder what a university should be. A university to me should be a sanctuary that provides care, provides growth, and provides love for everyone. But sometimes all the professors, they just seem so busy with their own research, with their own academic pursuit, and they have so little time for us. And we do have care institutions, we do have facilitators and someone who take care of our psychological needs, but sometimes I also feel like they may not understand what's going on, since the session is always like 1 hour long and it will take ages to book in one session. So all the psychological needs, all these companies that we need, where are they? Sometimes I wonder if you are falling in a forest and there's no one around, if you ever truly fall, or do you ever make a sound? Which also makes me picture this kind of new university. What will it look like? What kind of facilities can it provide? What kind of free and flexible spaces can it provide, so that being healthy is not merely for academic growth, being healthy is not all that counts. We should also have the space to be sad, to be angry, to be fearful. And that's the diversity that's in my imagination, and a new university should allow us to be sad, to be not okay. And to be not okay altogether, I believe that's the only way to be all okay as a group. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I really like that kid. Hello everyone, so this was a section of our student stories, and now this is in our organization, the section of the University of the Future. And what is this University of the Future going to look like? and I'm here to talk a little bit about values. And I am, just like my peers, a Founding Lab student. My name is Luisa. I'm 28 years old. I'm originally an architect from Brazil, but I'm in Korea right now as a member of the Social Computing Lab of KAIST, in the Graduate School of Cultural Technology, or as we call it, CT. I don't like scripts, but I had to come with one, so please bear with me. For the last 2 weeks as the Founding Lab, we have spent all of our time together sitting through lectures and working and discussing in workshop rooms with our facilitators and workshop hosts, or just having meals, having a drink, catching the tram, going back to the dorm, walking through Linz. I must say that when I got here, I was a bit insecure about how much I could contribute. I'm not an artist, and this is Ars Electronica, right? But as the days went by and we shared ourselves and our experiences, our journey, and the things that have gone well and the things that have gone wrong, what's exciting and what's a bit of a letdown, I slowly realized that I did have something to add. Maybe my sampling is a little bit biased, but it seems like many of us came here with the desire to look for scattered pieces of what could eventually be insight into what we should do next. I certainly did. We are all adults of a certain age with so much to learn. Some of us are still coming to the realization that adulting is a trap and that the uncertainty of life doesn't end with your teenage years. What we all have in common, as has been constantly said since we started, is that we are the people who have chosen to stay in between the imaginary boundaries of what our practices should be. And this sounds beautiful, but it's complicated in practice, particularly for the digital sciences. The digital sciences, they are collaborative by nature. They cannot be sustained on the shoulders of individual efforts. They are born collective, not just inter, trans, or cross-disciplinarian, but post-disciplinarian as well. I have been a church leader for many years. I know no one expected to hear that, right? One useful thing that I've learned from the religious context is that we should always be thinking about the intentions, motivations, and values at the root of the things that we are trying to do. And yes, I am talking, like I said, about values, about intimate beliefs and affections, what drives us, what kind of inner world we're cultivating in our own journey. The starting point of the things that we do and making sure that they are coherent with the outcomes we want to see. I do care a lot about the practicalities of the work, but I wanted to give a speech about the type of heart and mind that you should have if you want to be a part of the people who will build this future we are dreaming of right now. Shaking the structures of a world that thrives on exclusion and exploitation, to build our post-disciplinary table where everyone gets a seat and a say in the conversation with justice, equality, accessibility, care. But I have got to be honest, recently I had to admit to myself that I'm still not as understanding, open, and reasonable with differences as I thought I was. Of course, I'm not talking about tolerating differences that threaten the core values of the university that we want to help bring forth. I'm talking about the things that we bring to the table when we take our seat, the way we talk to and about others, our beliefs about life and work, priorities, methodologies, manners, facilities, equipment, skills, vision, willingness, hard work, funding. I studied social sciences in an engineering school, and it's just as hard as it sounds. And I am constantly challenged by my peers because I still have a bunch of hierarchies in my head about the ways of living and working that are good and valid and the ones that are not. Maybe some of you relate to what I'm saying, but I hope that there are more of you that can teach something about the type of respect, compassion, and flexibility we should have to meet and accommodate others exactly where they are, for who they are, and then do something together. The bottom line is that we want to work not just for personal gain, but to bring about change. The frustrations and limitations, there are multiple. There are so many things that we are not happy about, but we will achieve very little if our good intentions don't match the nature of the things that we are trying to build, if our actions don't follow our intentions. It's in the big things, but it's also in the details about how we see each other, how we treat each other, which influence the dynamics of everyday life in our shared spaces. The way we negotiate, how much we are willing to give, how much we are willing to lose, who is willing to compromise and give up some of their resources in the name of others. communicating for resolve, not for conflict, being open about what works and what doesn't work, standing strong on your ground of what you think is fair, being open to being wrong, recognizing that not all disagreements will have a clear answer, dealing with different ways of expressing ideas and thoughts, respecting that some people need more space than others, being less judgmental, more patient in figuring out other people's boundaries, being mutually open to negotiate them. I do not believe in good or bad matches, but I think that anything is possible as long as we want to see it work out. Both parties. I am very people-centered. I care a lot about the connections that we make here, but the thing I love the most about being here was watching how us, the students, and the Founding Lab team adapted to each other. How the Austrian punctuality made room for other approaches to being on time. And the students who were late at first and made the effort to leave the dorm a bit earlier, I watched that. The team's commitment to being transparent about the limitations and what were the things that mattered the most. It wasn't all perfect, but it was sufficient. In the words of Mr. Darcy, being here taught me to hope as I had scarcely ever allowed myself to hope before. As such, I wholeheartedly believe that there is a way for all of the challenging things that we want to work on from now on. Let's be even more specific. 10 years from now, in the summer of 2033, I want to be able to look back at this exact moment, the Founding Lab, and have the clarity of a decade to be so glad that I came and proud of the things that will come to exist because we came together. Yes, some results will take longer than 10 years. Not all strategies will thrive, some experiments will fail, but I hope that as founders, we will be patient without losing our passion, and the hope that things that we want to build will be possible one day because today we have chosen to sit, listen, and act. And now we are done with the heartfelt talk. My friends can come and talk about the strategies, the concrete stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm Mrinalini, and now this section is going to cover some of the technicalities of what this university can be, starting from how universities have been in their positioning in the world, and how advances in AI technologies and climate crisis can play a part in shaping the university as it is, and then going on to what curriculum structures in a university like this can look like. So let's get started. So firstly, we are going through the fourth industrial revolution, which is about AI, big data, digital twins, etc. And the European Union, in terms of its ideals for higher education, along with other places, is looking at how to make like Industry 4.0 more resilient and working towards it. Now, the way the industry has been going, along with other geopolitical features, has impacted how we study in universities. From like from the stress on research universities to the coming up of entrepreneurial universities, which are more about like startup culture, having incubation labs, as well as seed funding within universities, which makes for a lot of cross flow between the industry and the university, as well as the government and the university in terms of making policy, etc. But what is missing in this entrepreneurial university, and I think we have heard from a lot of people today, is the community. How does this university in this new industrial revolution fit into the idea of the community, both in terms of the local community, in IDSA's case, in terms of Linz, as well as the global community, as all of us are coming from different parts of the world? How does this fit into our relationship with the places we come from? How can we give back? So we think it's very important for the community to be a part of all of this, as well as, especially because things like the climate crisis and the advancements in AI are impacting everyone. So we can talk a little bit about that. I promised Stephanie some diagrams, so here are some more diagrams. And how like the university can involve artificial intelligence. A lot of universities right now are kind of bringing it into the infrastructure now, but since it's a new university, we have time to start from the very scratch of it. Firstly, it's very important to stress upon just and equitable data. How can we build systems like that and build communities of data? There are already communities that exist which are highly specialized but open source. How can we navigate within those spaces, contribute to those spaces, and also create communities of data and like coming together in places like LINS? What would a digital twin of LINS and the university look like? How would the future be? This is also very important given the global, especially the situation in the global south, where you already have digital sweatshops in which people are like labeling and classifying information manually. And this again plays into the idea of equity and justness. And for this, it is very important also to build specialized skills in terms of artificial intelligence and the digital sciences. So we have that on one side of it. And on the other, we have the institute and the infrastructure itself. It's very important to be able to build from ground up artificial intelligence, large language model capacities into academic libraries, for example, and knowledge management. What would it be like in the university of the future to navigate through entire resources of books and like knowledge, as well as like knowledge production that's happening within a university being powered by large language models, for example? What would personalized mental health care look like when it's personalized, although with human supervision of professionals? What would that look like, and what would a personalized experience for a student be? And also, how could administrative work be made more efficient? These are all questions that we can come together and think about when we're laying the foundations for a new university. And then coming to climate change. We have been very thankful, I think, to the strong public transport connectivity in Linz. It's really been wonderful, especially right now coming from the US and just seeing how car-centric everything is. Like, it's wonderful to see a city like so connected in this way, and it just being free for all. I think that's a great foundation and a way in terms of how it connects to Linz to build up like the different levels of how IDSA can function in terms of climate resilience. For example, how might we build a university that from its very building blocks is is carbon neutral? You know, what would architecture like that or urban planning like that look like? And especially, what would carbon neutrality mean in terms of computing? Computing, as we all know, isn't just in the clouds. It actually takes data servers, and a lot of these data servers produce a lot of emissions. And universities today outsource a lot of these data services to companies like Google and Amazon, and don't engage as much with what the emissions of these companies and the policies of these companies are. How can, as a university, we take initiative to go for greener, greener solutions in terms of our data consumption and data use? And finally, how can we incorporate the idea of climate resilience into the very curriculum of this university and how it functions within the city? I think these are all very important things. We're all going to be affected. For example, the fact that Austria, the temperature is going to be rising in this particular part of the world. And we've already seen huge heat waves, and the dorms that we're living in currently aren't equipped to deal with this sort of heat. They're equipped with radiators for the winter. But what would like building material, not just air conditioning, look like? What would building material which is more sustainable be in terms of this, which is helpful in the form of cooling? Then finally, coming back to the students. We believe that this needs to be an interdisciplinary space where people come together across disciplines. And for this, here we have another diagram. We think it's important to have like a core epistemic center and values. Their epistemology about ways of knowing and different fields of knowledge is very important as a foundation and building block for different disciplines to be able to interact with each other. Because what's happening in most universities today is that people are getting so specialized, so narrowed into their own like specializations, that they're speaking different languages altogether. We're not being able to make space for collaboration. How can we change that? How can an artist coming to the space understand enough about scientific research methodologies to collaborate with scientists? And how can scientists come in and think about like artistic practices and see what an artistic way of knowing is? And then you have the humanities and the social sciences. How do they all come together? And we think that it's important in this university to build technical digital science skills, but also equip it and power it up with humanities and art-based learning, and pull it all together with project-based systems in which classes, in classes that you actually make things, classes which are connected to fab labs, classes in which you have interdisciplinariness in its very curriculum, not just a class about programming, but a class about programming as it would be taught to children in Linz, and how that might engage with something else altogether, with misinformation, for example. So we need to create curriculum and syllabi which takes mission over disciplines and like has a core like a value system attached to it. And finally, I think what resonates with what a lot of people have been talking about, it's important to go back to society and the community. How can all of the learning that we do engage with both the local communities as well as our global community networks? What would it mean to be an alumni of this institute? 10 years from now, we're going to have people going out in the world. How do we connect them together? How do we make sure that places like I come from India, what about my community back there? How do we create a network and satellite networks that are functioning within these spaces? So these are some of the concerns and some of the ideas that we have in terms of this, in order to create a world where we have individuals who are flexible in a changing world. And I will leave you with that thought.
Thank you very much for that very in-depth set of diagrams. It's really cool to see, and that's a lot of what we've been thinking about and talking about. I have a couple of last things to say. I'm a historian by training, so this is all very new and very exciting for me, but there's two things really that I want to say before we wrap up. The first is there's material needs in a university, and we've talked a lot about sort of flexibility, about pressure, about society, about how students need well-being. Students need to be healthy, and they have to. None of this is ever going to work if you don't manage to do the physical infrastructure right. And I just think this is a really important point that has to be said here. And I know you've been trying to get rid of the parking spaces and make it nice, but I think the university has to be connected in, lots of you fellows were saying physical space, that's really important. And students have to be able to exist, they have to live before they can learn. This means that it has to be accessible, and it has to be accessible to a diversity of students. This means students with physical disabilities, this means students with immune disabilities. That's really important as well, because as the world gets more polluted, gets more clogged up, we need these perspectives of people who can't necessarily, people for whom it's dangerous to get ill. What I'm going to say is no one should have to work while they're ill. There should be a culture where the pressure doesn't force people to go, oh, well, I'm sick, but I have to come into work. I've noticed the last 3 weeks, we're all very vulnerable to burning out, all of us students, because we really want this to work and we really want this to be good and we don't want to let our teams down. But these are humans, these are environments, and these are people and infrastructures that have to be healthy for any of this to work. And with a view to the future, I'd like to take a little bit of a view to the past, which is the culture of the university. Someone of the fellows was talking about how the machine, the part of the problem of the machine is always the designer. And we're designing a new university, but we're designing a university. And elite universities always tell this story that it's worth coming to them because they have produced amazing people, or they will make you into the best person. They're going to take you and mold you into something and shoot you out on the other end. And I've definitely experienced a lot of that in kind of old, crusty universities. These are some nice, crusty books for you to look at. Because in these books is learning. But around that culture, it's really important the stories that we choose to tell, to ideate, and to identify with. Because if we're talking about progress, if we're talking about excellence, as I was saying before, we have to make sure that the foundation narratives of a new university are about inclusivity, they're about accessibility, and they're about a diversity that allows us to take in influences from everywhere. I sort of imagine it like we're trying to create the structure of a new university, the infrastructure, but the culture is really fragile, and it's something that's going to be very uncontrollable once it starts. And I think it's really important to be careful the way that we talk and the way that we think about it, because it's going to become history really fast. The minute we start saying, you know, the IDSA has produced this person, it's produced this person, it's produced this kind of learning, we're creating an identity for an institution which is going to have deep ramifications in the future. So, to wrap up before we reach our Q&A and then we can go and have lunch, we've started with an introduction to the Founding Lab, an introduction to who we are. We've had stories about what it's like to be a student, what it's really personally like to live in a university and a higher education environment. We've moved that on to values, to the deep sort of necessary emotional and spiritual values of what it needs to be like for people to flourish. And we've had an exploration of project-based learning, of facilities, of the necessary stories that we have to be critical of and to tell to grow a new university. And I think it all sums up with the interdisciplinary community. We think we want a university that doesn't make individuals, doesn't take an individual, throw it through the process, and send the individual out at the end into some supposedly stable world that doesn't exist anymore. Because that's what a university was originally for. Originally, you take the person, you put them in the university, they come out at the end, and they can go into the stable structures of life, whatever job that might be. You know, you could be a priest, and you could... Anyway, I think that's a bit fun. Yeah, they'd immediately give you a nice house, and anyway. That doesn't exist, that world does not exist anymore. And the university cannot be that kind of closed structure that takes an individual and sort of throws them through a set of processes. It has to be a community. So I want you guys, I think, as a final note, I want you guys to think about how a university can produce a community, how it can be, someone said plurality earlier, I like that as well. It's the idea that the university isn't about individuals, it's about communities and teams and groups that are going to shape each other and are going to shape the future. One point I'd just like to highlight for my own amusement is that there's people here that have been such peaceful influences. Like, we're all so stressed and we're trying to make things happen and we're trying to work and be excellent, but there's people that have contributed so vitally just by existing in a peaceful way. And it's that kind of thing that you have to build into interdisciplinary community. So this is not the end. This is not the end of our presence here. You guys need to go to see our booths. You have to see our demonstrations. We've got policy groups. There's a reporting group. A lot of the media produced for this is out online, and that's available to go and look at. And now I'd like to introduce Katja Schechtner to come and moderate our Q&A, I believe.
Well, thanks a lot. It's actually very easy, Stephanie. Now you just have to deliver. Vanessa, would you join me on stage for the Q&A, as we've done so many times together? Cool. Cues. Anyone a question on here? We have mics in the... Oh, question over there. Mic is coming.
Just a simple one. What would be the possible deficit in the university for the future?
Thank you. That's a good question. So what's a possible deficit?
Oh, yes. Do you mean like what would be lost? Yes. Yeah. I think it's easy it's easy to use interdisciplinary as a buzzword, this is how we're going to shape the future, and forget some of the heritage of learning, which is to delve deep and to find things that you wouldn't find if you weren't specifically, massively, madly interested in something very strange. And it's possible that that could get lost in an interdisciplinary university, particularly when you put it all the way down to the undergraduate level. It is obviously a danger that you'll have people that just kind of hop between things. And I think that's a valuable thing that we need to preserve. That's that specific input, that energy to have people to delve deep. But we also need a community where people can come up out of the sort of intellectual rabbit hole and talk to each other and have ideas from each other. So I think creativity comes from interdisciplinarity, and it's an extra rather than it's an extra and a reshaping rather than it is a casting away of deep learning on not in a technical way anyway.
Yeah. Another question, Claudia? Sorry, go ahead with the answer.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think what we're really going to lose, very honestly, is we're going to lose some walls. We're going to lose walls between different disciplines. We're going to lose walls between the university and the town. And we're going to lose walls between what it means to learn and know through different ways of knowing.
Thanks. Claudia, please.
My question is, in this world, very nicely and great described, what does excellence mean for you in this world? Where, I'm sure there is a place for excellence, but I'm sure it's different. Can you explain this, please? Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that we had the chance of discussing during the founding lab were the standards of performance that would be required, not just from a policy perspective for the university to keep existing, but also from the students. And I think that one of the key points of flexibility is understanding that different tasks should be evaluated differently. Different activities demand different standards, different people should have the right to be measured differently, which is complicated, but we can think of ways to do that. So I think that excellence should not be a general or global or a universal set of measures. But at the same time, I think that the willingness to be here is a mode of excellence in itself. University has always been about cultivating the certain lifestyle, certain mindset, which is why talking about values was so important to me, because I think that if you're not someone who is thinking about the world in a certain way, you're not gonna, this sounds horrible, you're not gonna fit in this kind of environment, which is an environment, it's kind of paradoxical, but yeah, so excellence is going to be doing your best, but being committed. I think commitment would be a good one.
And also we believe that excellence is something that related to individuality. So when we speak of learning outcomes, it's not a mark. I mean, marks, in a way, they reflect your performance, but it's only the standard way. But what we have learned from different subjects is something that can benefit our own personal growth. Like by learning mathematics, we learn how to do problem solving that can be applied everywhere. By learning biology and arts, we are fundamentally learning the gesture of care. So that's all the transdisciplinary and also fluid personalities and traits of human beings. And we believe that it's the traits that define us and makes us a better human being.
Thank you. I'll take two more questions. Barbara first.
Thank you. It's rather an exclamation of happiness than a question. I was so moved by all your statements, and I think there is no room for competition anymore. Competition in the old sense is really old school. Collaboration is the new competition. This is what will make you stand out, and what will make you be excellent, because we can be so much more as mankind if we collaborate and not fight against each other. And I think this will be the wings on which this university can really fly. I'm very happy and looking forward to being with you.
Maybe Lucas, unless you want to reply on. Anyone? Vanessa?
I just wanted to, before we take our next question maybe, ask all those who are not sitting on the stage. We have always tried to have a very inclusive conversation space at the Founding Lab up to here, and I think this would be a very good space to continue this. So I would specifically also invite the students to contribute, especially those that we haven't heard, something that they would like to add, something that we maybe haven't heard yet. And I do know that you have done a fantastic job in representing all the voices, but there are so many more that we actually haven't heard. So I'm just passing the mic there.
So, hello. Let me just take out my nervousness first. It's very sudden. Yeah, there was one point that I maybe could add, but it has been told in different ways. Different narratives have been built around it. I think at the end of the day, we need to also ask questions that are not only economically valuable, but also valuable to us as humans, in terms of our evolution. Have we finished our evolution with the evolution of a separate thumb? Is that all we are as evolutionary beings? Do we have further to evolve? And where are we going? This does not give us economic benefit. This does not probably make richer people richer, but these kinds of questions will definitely make better humans. And in terms of excellence, I think I would value human excellence more than any other kind of certificate or a kind of prize of excellence. So, yeah, still nervous, but these are pretty much my points.
Thank you. Okay, well then, Lucas.
So through some magical coincidence, I have two microphones, but I will only use one. I like that you talked about the community aspect. I think we should think about the city, Linz. The new university is going to be part of a city that has existed for a long time. And I was wondering what's your experience? Do people know about this university when you talk with them and try to use your Sodexo vouchers? What's your impression of what role can this university play within this existing ecosystem?
Anyone who wants to share about their experience in Linz, unless we need to make back on the stage. Priyanka, no experience in the city? Well then, but we need the mic. Thanks.
Yeah, we did have experience, especially in the tram. I would like to sadly report that most of the students that had some remarkable interactions were students of color that were singled out. I'm not white, I'm Brazilian, I'm mixed Brazilian, but I pass more easily. But some students that don't, they were singled out with their name cards, with their bags. Yeah, people talked about it. We had the experience of people in the tram saying this university should not exist, that kind of thing. These things were discussed in our spaces as well. We understand, we heard from people in the team that have more experience with Linz that it's an Austrian thing, apparently. I don't know, I'm just reporting what someone else said, that it takes a while, but people eventually come to realize the value and how good it can be. And I believe that one thing that I've noticed is that everyone in the team is very passionate about Linz. Not only the ones who were born and raised here, but yeah, the ones who have made the city their home. So I understand that it's a matter of time, because there is a real interest in showing the city that this project is also about them.
Thank you.
Just adding to that, I think community engagement is going to be a very vital part about this. And I think there are multiple ways to do so. Firstly, I think the students over here are definitely, like the youngsters are definitely going to benefit from this interaction. Ars Electronica has been doing a wonderful job getting the world into Linz, and I guess it's about taking that forward and seeing how it can integrate more. I also think that it's coming, I guess, from my own place back in India. We have a lot of people who don't fit into the conventional systems of education, and but still have a lot to offer, be it through traditional ecological knowledge or other forms of knowledge and folklore, for example, or like different ways of being. And I think this is a university that needs to be able to incorporate that. And also, I guess it's really, somebody brought this up earlier, but it's very important to note that learning is not just for the youth. I think this university needs to believe in lifelong learning. And I think that is a way that the people of Linz, especially the older generations in Linz, can deeply engage with, both while teaching as well as learning from this university.
Thank you. And as we have been reminded that students and professors need food and rest, we have one more question for Stephanie, if she wants to finalize this, and then one last round. Stephanie?
Okay, I happen to have a
mic. Dasha, quick, you have the mic? Okay.
Thank you very much for all these great ideas and suggestions. What about the community of the other universities? I mean, we are not existing in an isolated place, so there are 22 other universities, lots of Fachhochschule, so applied colleges and other learning institutions around. What do you think, how should the cooperation or the interaction be with these organizations?
Thank you. I think with the other universities, and we have been reflecting a lot on our current institutions, is that for me personally from Australia, my university is separated by buildings, so the art school is separate to where the science is done, so there's no form of cross-collaboration. There's no way to interact with these students. We're the weird art students wearing weird clothes and going and telling them our big ideas. There's nothing there to break down the barriers. So a shared space between all disciplines or art studios or places to collaborate, to meet, or project-based would really allow us to start collaborations. As I said, I really wanted to meet a scientist while I was here, and that has happened, but it is not something I've been able to do in Australia to collaborate with, so.
Thank you.
So before we leave you all, I think we're heading there. I just wanted to also mention that in the conference group, we have other people also who were greatly a part of this, be it Kevin in terms of the video he made, or Deepthi in terms of all her ideologies of care and peacefulness that she brings in terms of her general energy, as well as Arena for helping with the design, and as well as Sutanuka and other like Youngjun who are going to be talking about, and Benedict, who are going to be talking in the next section about the different things that we did in the different groups, and you will learn more about that. And most importantly, I'd like to thank Luciano and Anna for being wonderful organizers. Yeah. They've been really wonderful, and they've really bared with a lot with us, so thank you so much.
Thank you.